Welcome to A Dram of Outlander. This is Desiree, your podcaster and a writer for adramofOutlander.com. Thank you for joining me for in-depth discussions of the Outlander book series by Diana Gabaldon, the adapted television series, and anything interesting that falls between. This is podcast episode 157, and we are discussing season 4, episode 406, Blood of My Blood. I got quite a bit of feedback on last week's episode that I will get to at the end of this episode. The one thing I do want to hit upon is I got an email saying that it only been about 12 years since Jamie and Murtagh had seen each other. Yeah, duh. Thanks for that. Somehow I doubled that time because I was thinking about Claire and Culloden, and my brain just zapped out of my head apparently. So my apologies for that, and thank you for the correction. Episode 406 was directed by Denise Novi, like last episode, and written by Shaina Fewell, who has another episode in 2019 coming up. And the summary goes something like this. An unexpected duo comes to visit. Lord John's wife has died. The boy William is grief-stricken. Lord John asks for discretion. Murtagh serves up politics and distrust with dinner. The boy remembers Mac the groom. Murtagh discovers the truth about William. A liquor-lubricated chess game is played. John becomes ill with the measles. Jamie and William head out on a multi-day tour of the Ridge. Claire tends to John. Barbed and frank conversations occur. The boy and Jamie hunt. Emotions run high. John makes a confession. The boy shows courage. Claire and John make peace. Parting gifts are shared. So, first of all, I want to hear what you think about this episode. 719-425-9444 is the voicemail line, and the email is contact@adramofOutlander.com. Yes, I do want to hear from you. I want your feedback. Woo, it's getting good. It's getting good. It's getting good. For the book lovers out there, so much of the material is being directly adapted from the books. And the spirit is really there so much this season overall. And I am loving that for those of us who, again, think we have prophecy and then it's just wrong. So I'm going to start with all the feels. So this episode is a roller coaster of emotions, where we see longing, tenderness, passion, vulnerability, confrontation, brutal honesty, humility, fear, hope, understanding, introspection, and healing. That's a lot in a 1-hour episode. That's a lot to evoke. It ranged from subtle things like a tear rolling down a face to Murtagh, almost sounding like he's at a rally. He's so fixated, right? And the swallowing after something is said and the clenching of a jaw. So this episode really had everything. And I think it was really beautifully done. Overall, top to bottom. So a couple of things that I really kind of just loved is when William turned around to look at Jamie as he rode away. He left Jamie with the promise that they would see each other again, because Jamie had told him the reason he didn't look back at Hellwater when he left when William was 6 was because he didn't want to give him false hope, because he didn't think that they'd see each other again. So here's a string of hope that William is giving to Jamie. John and Claire being utterly frank with each other and not holding back, no matter what the other said. There are very few people in this world who conversations can be had with them that are just no holds barred and anything can be said. And in general, one of the people would just get up and walk away in life, right? They would never sit there and not only listen to it, but ask for more. I was just enthralled. Especially the second viewing, how the two of them sat in that space together, confined. Like, she couldn't leave him. He was really sick. There was no place to go. She kind of had a porch to sit on, right? But it's not as if there was any other privacy. They were just dead in each other's space, and she had to clean up the chamber pot after him and all of that stuff. Like, he was at her mercy. So the idea that they could start out in one place and shed those layers, it was gorgeous. Like, I long for those kind of conversations, because even though you could see it brimming under both of them, that they just wanted to, like, let loose on the other person, they didn't. Not really. There was, a little bit here and there, but they really had the essence of self-control, which I loved. I don't know if that's them being English or what, but it was amazing. The fact that Claire wishes happiness and contentment upon John to find a worthy partner, to find someone who will give him that look of satisfaction. Now, John is a gay male in a time where you would be put to death for being homosexual. It was considered extreme deviancy, even though there were the same proportion of gay men and lesbian women and bisexual people that there are today, probably. Like, truly, that's their proclivity. They had to hide. And they had to hide within marriages. And this wasn't, even into the 1980s. It was considered something really awful. And in Australia, it was into the 90s, right? Early 2000s. I mean, we're talking recent changes in history. So he was really living in a time that was truly dangerous for him. But the fact that she would hope that that could be found for him was a beautiful olive branch. And I also really had all the feels when Jamie stood up for Lord John to Murtagh when they were standing out on the porch. And Murtagh wanted Jamie to get information from Lord John that he could use. And Jamie's like, buddy, like, I'm not going to use my friendship. And Lord John has no idea what transpired, right, between Jamie and Lord John and how they got this relationship and how there's this trust, even though it was very fragile trust for a long time, that this is probably Jamie's best friend outside of Claire. Truly and deeply is Lord John. Okay, so there's lots of other examples, but these were the key ones that I was like, oh, so good. Thank you. Thank you for giving me feels. Well, there is one more, but I'm saving that for the bottom of the good. So, again, the bulk of this episode is fantastic. Like, no complaints. And I loved the nod at the beginning with the snake being in the privy. That does actually happen to be an awfully clean, non-venomous milk snake that was collected from the privy. So that privy had to be, like, freshly dug for that snake to come out, like, pristine like that. That kind of cracked me up. But the milk snake is all over North America. It's very common. And it's often, what word am I looking for? It's often confused with venomous snakes. So there you have it. That's what that was. So there was a little nod to us book readers with that snake in the privy. as well as Jamie bringing up the carved snake. Okay, that one thing was like, wah, wah, to me. I thought it was ridiculous that Jamie would, like, give him a Sani, but that's just me. It's sort of like the paperweight. I know it wasn't a paperweight, but the dragonfly in amber, literally, that Claire gave Jamie that she saw later in the Culloden Battlefield Museum. You know, like, here's a paperweight, honey. Love you. Got a jet to the 20th. I thought those two were such awkward weirdnesses. Jamie could have fashioned a rosary out of, like, rope and, I don't know, something. He would have figured it out. He could have carved little wood beads. Anyhow, so we did have a little snaky theme here, just as a nod. But getting back to the good, again, the exchanges between Claire and John are difficult and almost catty in the beginning. Then the conversations evolve into blatant honesty and mutual pain before understanding grows between them, blossoming into their own relationship filled with mutual respect. It is heart-tugging to witness their struggle with each other. Like, that yoinked at me hard. And to have such incredible vulnerability between both of them. I love at the point where Claire's like, you need to stop talking. Like, she just couldn't go an inch further after he shocked her and said that he could have had Jamie, that Jamie offered his body, and she was like, the changes in her countenance were so minimal, but said so much. I mean, he was super fevered. Like, he didn't... The deepest things were coming out of him at that point. Like, it seemed like John thought he was going to die. And how they could sit in an extreme case and space where there really wasn't any choice if they were going to communicate and get to the bottom of things, to be utterly naked in front of each other emotionally. Like, it took a little chipping to get there, but not a lot. I mean, I think both of them have to realize that Jamie trusts and loves them both, right? They have to, and they both love and trust Jamie. So really, it's better that they figure out what it is and how they can work together, or how they can at least be tolerable to each other. And it's no surprise that Claire is envious and a little bit jealous, right? That's a whole time period that she was forced to miss out on, like she said, that they weren't able to be together, and they lost that 20 years. And the humility that came from both Lord John and Claire, that neither of them had voiced before. Not to anyone. Maybe not even out loud to themselves. I know that Lord John had written a letter, and, to Jamie. Didn't send it. But these are things that have gone unvoiced. And that they've found the security to say it to each other. Because nobody else could they say it to. Some of it would sound terrible. Like, they can't say it to Jamie, right? He would flip his shit. He would be very unhappy with it. So they had to do this together. And I could almost see this as just being a play. Him having the measles and them locked in a room, and they could have this, like, 2-act, 3-act play or something that's just their relationship. I don't know what you would call it. But it would probably be really interesting to watch, because we get a lot more from it. But Lord John sharing with her that he had to make sure that he could still feel. Basically, could he love at all? He was numb. And he was walking around numb for a long time. And when Isabel died, he should have been grieving monstrously for her. They had been friends since childhood. They shared a life. They created a life for 5 years, 6 years, as a family with William. That does have to mean something. And that tells me Lord John was probably depressed, clinically. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a therapist. or the fact that he was just guarding himself so closely from being vulnerable from that pain and feeling it. I mean, I'm not talking just Isabel, but I'm talking in his life that he didn't have anyone. And he wanted to make sure that he could still feel. And if he still had feelings and loved Jamie, then he was still alive. And I'm so glad he shared that. It's still really frustrating to me that Lord John holds this torch knowing it can never, ever go anywhere. But maybe it's enough. Maybe it's enough simply to know that he's alive and simply to know that he does have love to give and offer, and that he can feel for all the good and the bad. He can feel. And that he shared that with Claire. It's so great. And the relationship that they built in those days, in that week, basically, 6 days, is something outside of Jamie. It is their relationship, only between Claire and John. And Jamie might be the linchpin to that, but it's theirs. And they shared something extremely intimate. And she was physically caring for him too. That's a big deal. I could watch those scenes over and over again, and I probably will. I put some of the dialogue in as my favorite lines from this episode. The other really good that I saw in this episode is that Jamie has great restraint when it comes to William, as he clearly wanted to touch him and love on him as a son. But he couldn't. The other part of that is you have to understand societally is that even though William is 12 years old, he's an earl. So he has a society title. Like Jamie's now a landowner, and that gives him some cred, right? But he's still a pardoned Jacobite traitor. You know, there's still a few things that, tarnish the Fraser name and Jamie. But William is heir to a great fortune and lands, right? So Jamie is actually supposed to call him by a dignified name and go through the motions, because in society, William is above Jamie. And he's been brought up in this kind of society. William is hurting and grieving for the loss of his stepmother. Then, when his father becomes ill, he fears for his life too. Lord John is the only father, really, that William knew. Lord Dunsany was his grandfather and participated, but Lord John's really been his foundational stepfather. And that's his papa, as he called him. The knowledge that Jamie is Mackenzie, the groom, who left him at Hellwater, deepens the wound of loss he feels. William is trying to process and manage his difficult emotions at the tender age of 12. He's no regular boy. Again, he's an earl and heir to lands and wealth. His path is not simple, and he wears the cloak of the impending duty and responsibility upon his shoulders. His internal battle shows the conflicting desire to leave childhood behind and grow into his idea of what it means to be a man. So this isn't merely a pre-adolescent boy struggling with all this loss in his life. I mean, also remember, his mother and father died on the day of his birth. And then he's lost his grandmother since, and his grandfather, and now his stepmother. So the only person that's really left to him is Lord John Grey, who's his stepdad, but he's his father. And then now we have him coming face to face with Mackenzie the groom, who he grieved over when he left Hellwater. It's a big deal. So he really has a lot that he's struggling with. I know that many people can't stand the character of William. And I don't know if it's because there's just not a lot of tolerance for a character finding themselves and kicking off the rough edges and struggling. William's life looks like something beautiful and upper crusty from the outside, right? But he's in a gilded cage. Even at this tender age, he knows what's ahead of him. He knows when they go to Virginia, those are his mother's lands that she inherited. Those are his lands, right? And he has the land in England. And his father is a soldier. And when you look at those things, he has been brought up, even though he's a spoiled brat to some degree, he's been brought up with this sense of deep honor. And this is where you can see the similarities between Jamie and John. Is it environment or biology? Well, I'd say it's both. Because Lord John and Jamie have that sense of honor and duty and doing the right thing at the expense of yourself. Right? They both do that. And they will fight for what's right. And William has a great example in Lord John for all those things. But then as he comes of age, that we will see down the line that all of these things really are going to be challenging to him as he becomes a young adult and into adulthood. So he's carrying a heavy burden already. And I just would say, please give William a chance and see him for what he's struggling with and trying to become. Remember, Jamie had the whole lairdship foisted on him when his older brother died. And then his dad died when he was in prison. And he had to carry those burdens at a young age and to become something. And he never was really able to become it until now he's like in his late 40s owning land. But now has an oath to Governor Tryon. So he does not really yet totally, completely his own man. And then William's at 12 trying to deal with these same kind of things that he has to deal with. William also shows his courage in the face of the Cherokee and takes responsibility for himself after Jamie offers up his blood instead. Jamie is proud of William and holds the boy after the encounter. It was scary. The Cherokee men came and they wanted blood because they said that William stole their fish because William crossed the boundary line and he went into the Indian lands. Jamie showed him. And so Jamie was grabbed by two of the men and he said, no, I'm his father. Blood of my blood, take mine. It's the same. To that effect. He was going to send William back to Fraser's Ridge to get John or whatever, get help, right? Tell Claire and John what was going on. But then William refused to go and said, oh no, he told me. And I disobeyed. I ignored the boundary line. And I stole the fish alone. So that's a huge step in the maturing process for William Ransom. And I love that we get to see that because he does struggle with that. Well, I'm the special boy and I'm the Earl. Somebody bring me a chamber pot. Yeah, no, buddy. You better get used to using the privy while we're here. And they've been traveling on the road for a while. So I don't suspect that they've had like private chamber pot service the whole way. But he expects that. Just like when they went to clean the deer that he downed, that he felled, that he was going to leave it to Jamie. Jamie was like, ain't no servants here. Like, no. And, then Jamie was like, oh, maybe you're too young. And William took up that mantle and was like, I'm not a boy. I'm not a child any longer. And for what he's seen in his life, he's probably not a child any longer. Just like young Ian wasn't. Well, in the books at, 14? But on the show, 16. That's like, no, I'm my own man. This is all these things that I've experienced. Don't minimize that because of my years on this earth, right? So William's really trying to grab it, go for it. William thinks that Jamie told the Indians He was his son to be protective, and I expect the memory of that experience will jar William into conscious knowing of who his biological father is at some point in the future. So when we leap ahead, he's going to remember that. If he finds out that Jamie's his biological father, that's what's going to flash through his head that moment. So I'm trying to be a fortune teller because this didn't happen in the book. So I'm trying to think like a writer's room writer. And that's one of the things they're going to be able to recall for William. Throughout the time Jamie and William spent together, there were teaching moments that William can add to the earlier things Jamie taught him when he was the groom. I also appreciated how the Cherokee were shown as proud and merciful during the fish confrontation. I mean, he took a cut. He bled. William bled. I wouldn't want to get sliced with an axe on my hand. That doesn't sound fun at all. But he took it. And because of his courage, and because he stood up and did the right thing and owned the situation, they showed proper mercy. Again, that word savages. Different culture does not mean one is above the other. That is one of the prime problems with how the British pushed colonialism. And I would say a lot of Christian missionaries during these time periods as well, where they'd go into other countries and say if the native women didn't wear shirts, if everybody was topless, they would have them conform to wearing dresses and corsets and the whole 9 yards. And it's like, Jesus don't care. I'll just put out there, I don't believe Jesus cares. If you really want to bring the love of Christ to people, you meet them where they are, not with your identity of what modesty is or anything else. So now you've taught these people who believe one thing, that their breasts are sexual and bad to be shown. I mean, that's just one thing. And you strip them of their own culture. No. But that's the aspect of this, is that because our way is the best way, our way is the only way, our way is the righteous way and the right way, that anything that isn't that, or they don't understand readily, is considered lesser or bad. Now, somebody posted on the page or the group a couple of weeks ago about, I should look at colonialism as not being bad. I will go and read the links when I have some time, and I will look at it, but yeah. That one aspect is enough for me to say, And it doesn't really matter that the Indians went into a treaty with the crown, right? They didn't have a choice. It was go into business with the crown or be slaughtered right there and then, or at least the attempt at slaughtering them. They had all these foreigners encroaching upon their soil, and we reached, a huge amount of people in the colonies by this time. Okay. And the thing that gave me all the feels that I didn't put in there, finally the missing ring is brought up when Claire is taking a bath and Jamie's pouring water on her. And he kisses her hand and she tells him she doesn't need a ring to know he loves her. And then he presents her with the thistle ring he had Murtagh make from part of the silver candlestick. It also has the Catalyst 5 inscription in it. It is pretty much perfection. And when I watched the little thing after with Meryl and Matt, it was basically, we fixed it. We fixed the ring. Yeah. So out with the key and in with the silver thistle is so pretty. Now that one I'll buy from the Outlander store. But so that's like, check. So that really is some kind of reconciliation for readers. It is really sad. I have the author's attic ring that is so beautiful. And since I fractured my hand, I have not been able to wear that ring. I still have swelling in my hand that's mild, but I still can't get it on comfortably. I'm hoping in this course of time I'll be able to wear it again. Every day I'm sad looking at my bare right hand. Maybe that's how Claire's felt this whole time since the ring got stolen. But if you're not aware of what the Catalyst inscription is, I will pull it up. It originally appears in Latin, and it comes from this poem. I'm going to say it in English because I do not read Latin very well. Let us live, my lesbia, and let us love, and let us value all the rumors of more severe old men, at a single as suns are able to set and to rise again, but to us, when once brief light has set, one perpetual night will be for sleeping. Give to me 1,000 kisses, then 100, then another 1,000, then a second 100, then without cease another 1,000, then 100. Then we have made many thousands. We shall mix them up, lest we know their number, or lest any is able to cast an evil eye, us, when it knows such to be the total of our kisses. So, there you have it. It's what is it? I have it written down. Da mi bajamile. So, there you have it. And in the author's attic ring that I have, I had my husband purchase me the inscribed ring as well. Because, if you're going to get it, have the inscription in there. But you can look up the Latin if you want. I did include the link for the English translation. But it's a very old poem. And of course it's Latin because, Jamie is a Latin head. But, and that bath, he gave Claire a hot bath. Like Claire in the first book said, or the first season, she could maybe leave him for a hot bath. It's kind of a toss-up. Yep, totally understand it. Hot water, huge thing. And having to heat all that water. Ugh. Okay, and I know there's been some complaint that Hot and Sexy, Claire and Jamie are not in it to win it all the time. Well, number one, life is real busy. They're starting from absolute scratch to build the ridge, right? So they kind of have other things to do. They just can't be sexing about all the time. But we did get to see that with them. And we get to see that connection. And in a healthy, loving way. So, they're going to have their flirtations and they have other things to do, just like the rest of us. It sounds really good all the time, but then you're like, yeah, well, I kind of have to eat dinner. Or I need clean clothes, so I'll get back with you in a little bit, honey. So the awkward. The only part of this episode that just made me go Murtagh being singularly focused on the tax situation in every conversation he participates in. This does not make for interesting viewing. He is the hammer and every freaking situation is a nail. Yes, it's something that's very pressing and important to him, but it's such a dichotomy to what Jamie's trying to do. It's like Jamie's the balanced one, right? At this point. And The dozen or so years apart from Jamie has altered their relationship. For the first time, Murtagh has something of his own to fight for and keep or lose. He's no longer Jamie's protector and main guidance counselor. Jamie is definitely working from an optimistic vantage point, while Murtagh is pessimistic about what the governor will or will not do. I hope we see resolution before too long, if only to lighten the mood. This was a really heavy episode, and in a good way. I mean, again, all the feels, wonderful things like the ring and relationship building and healing and all that stuff, right? Perspective shift. What nuggets did William take away from spending those 6 days with Jamie? But it was really heavy. And Murtagh added to that heaviness in a way that kind of felt like a weight at the bottom. They kind of drag him behind when everything else, though it had gravity to it, it all made sense. And then you got Murtagh being this like pissed off squeaky wheel. And then when he leaves, he just says that comment about, I'd like to hear about the mother, like William's mother, if that's not a secret too. Like, what? As if he's barely seen Jamie. He's been there for, I don't know, a few days maybe. When John shows up, so it's not like Jamie's going to like spill all the beans on everything that he's been going on with him for the last 12 years. So, the more people that know about William being Jamie's biological child, the more of a target it puts on William and can cause problems. Yeah. Jamie's own sister doesn't know. So that was kind of a weird poke at Jamie. And though, like I said in the last podcast, that to me, Murtagh's kind of a ghost that's here, just because I don't expect to see him as a reader. I'm totally open to him being here. Just like when they, had Angus die when Rupert was supposed to die. Way back. It's fine. It's fine that we have things adjusted, but he's just really feeling like he's a square peg trying to get shoved into a round hole. And I don't know if it's just to highlight the whole regulator thing, like, hey, this is going to be a big, big deal, because it keeps getting brought up multiple times. Or is this going to mean that he and Jamie are going to have a hard break? And he's going to lose the only other family besides Jocasta that he has and the new world? I don't know. Their relationship feels really fragile and like there's missing pieces because they've spent those time apart, and the years that Murtagh spent under indenture, and then now that he has something of his own for the very first time ever, and he's in his 60s, like, he doesn't want to give that up. He wants to fight for it. And where he would help Jamie fight for things in the years past and stand behind Jamie, Jamie's just not readily doing that because Jamie has his own path. And he's like, this is going to be a difficult path, and I'm going to have to navigate it, and the governor's going to be hard, but this is my best shot. So what is that going to do to them? Does this mean that, Murtagh's not going to be long-lived and he's going to die in a regulator uprising? I don't know. Does it mean that Jamie and he are going to have to be on the other side of the street, potentially shooting each other? Well, that's really scary. I think this feels so disconnected to everything else that's going on that I'm just not loving the direction Murtagh's taking. Now, I know everything hasn't been revealed, but I'm uncomfortable. It really disquiets me as a viewer. And it's like, what has happened to him? Like, wow. Like living without Jamie, he found his own sense of purpose in his own life. And it's odd. So what do you think? It's just what I've come up with. And I hope it's resolved soon. And even if they're not in agreement, that it can make sense. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen to Murtagh. This is all new ground. 100% new. The other thing I thought was really cute that I didn't put in my notes was the whole leech thing. William like, nope. And Claire just, hey, they're friends. Leeches are friends, not foes. I need to save those. And she put it in her bucket of water. What was that water going to be used for later that she threw the leeches in? That she brought back to the cabin? Hopefully she just jarred the leeches and then that water went to the animals or something. I don't know. I don't want to drink water that I know leeches were just currently sitting in. Hey, this tea tastes rather metallic. I don't know. I was like, oh. Like could see totally using leeches. Some hospitals are employing them again. And clinics. But I don't really want to have them in my drinking water. Thanks. So that the fitting Murtagh in with that overarching storyline is difficult. Like I can see Murtagh like storming the governor's quote palace in New Bern, for goodness sake. Hey, maybe that. Oh, I'm not going to say anything. Shh. Okay, book readers, maybe this is the New Bern situation. I won't say any more, I promise. Because I totally could be wrong. I'm just using conjecture with my sort of ability to prophesy from reading the books. So there are still some lingering questions. Where the heck is Brianna? What the heck is Roger doing? Will the tax situation force Murtagh to rise up against the governor or leave North Carolina? Will the tax situation pit Jamie and Murtagh against each other in a physical conflict? Like I just said. Where's Ottawahi's necklace? When will Leary want her pound of flesh and alimony? God, might she show up in the colony somehow? That would be banana pants. How are Marcelly and Fergus? I mean, we haven't heard from Fergus, and he's supposed to be recruiting families and looking for Ardmere men. Have heard hide nor hair from him. Why is William's wig as bad as Jamie's? It's like the battle of the bad wigs. Nearly this whole episode, Sam just looked like a comb refugee. And then even when Lord John was sick, his hair was like well coiffed. Claire's always looked good. Murtagh's looked good. No matter what Jamie was doing, his hair was all jacked up. He looks like he rolled out of bed. Like consummate bad bed hair. And then when William's hair was down and it had that like little Lancelot wig bang thing going on, they trying to match his bangs to Jamie's. I really, 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 really hope that the hair people somehow fix this wig atrocity when filming season 5. It's painful to watch. To me, it's so his wig is so distracting. It's like, oh, what is it going to look like this week? It's just hilarious. I was like, if I had that many bad hair days, I would either shave my head or I would start wearing one of those powdered wigs. Like, I would not walk around like that all the time. And I know Claire ain't fussy, but she's got to look at that dead animal on Jamie's head all the time. So, favorite lines. I just wish I'd had time to make appropriate sleeping arrangements for you and the young master. Claire to Lord John. When Lord John was like, if this is causing a burden, when they were still being catty in the beginning. You, sir, are a lout. William to Jamie when he didn't want to go, when Lord John came down with the measles and Jamie bodily put him on the horse. You cannot at all be a comfortable woman to live with, Lord John declared. Yep. She look you right in the face and say it. You are neither circumspect or circuitous. I don't believe I've ever met anyone so devastatingly straightforward, male or female. Lord John to Claire. Oh, it's hard. It's hard watching you with him. Oh, Lord John to Claire. Why torture yourself? Surely you knew coming here that you could never have him. Claire to Lord John. Dun, dun, dun. Right? And this was probably one of my favorite moments of the whole Lord John and Claire scenes. Do you know what it's like to love someone and never be able to give them happiness? Not through any fault of yours or theirs, but simply because you were not born the right person for them. Claire totally knows. And the fact that she responded that she had been married because she thought Jamie was dead in the time they were apart, and he was a good man, but she was the person who didn't fit. She was not born the right person for Frank anymore. And for her to admit that humbly, for her to show that to Lord John, who had no idea, that was beautiful right there. I'm like, BFFs forever. They're BFFs now. So, awesome all around. I did put a few links of interest, facts about the milk snake, Catalyst 5, and a link to the blood of my blood quote, because we love it. We just love it so much. And now I am going to share with you some responses I got back. Let's see, a YouTube comment from Linda B. I should have told you how great and well prepared you are. I just discovered you. Bravo. Thank you, Linda. Let's see. Kiss Lena says, I'm sorry you hate the lusty silversmith's wife. I agree that the native people should never be considered as mere savages for defending a progressive encroachment on their ancestral lands. Equally, I am not about slut-shaming a spirited woman who has an excellent appreciation for a handsome James Fraser. Okay, I was not slut-shaming. She and I already worked this out. I thought it was funny when she equated, her sexual favor to cooking, and Jamie's like, yeah, my wife cooks real good. So no, it wasn't that. It was the fact that I thought the use of the silversmith's wife, if it wasn't meant to go anywhere, like she was going to become a character on the ridge, like her husband would be the silversmith on the ridge or something, that it was a waste of really hard to get screen time. And something else could have been put in his place. And I sort of wonder if objectifying Jamie all the time in the TV show, I know in the books that women are fawning over him, but men are fawning over Claire all the time too. And it seems like there's a disproportionate amount of Jamie ogling in the series versus Claire. I could be wrong. It could just be what I'm saying. In real life, Sam Heughan is objectified to a degree that is preposterous. I mean, people would never say the things to Katrina Balfe that they just say to Sam, or the ownership they feel over Sam. It's horrifying to me. Like, it's one thing to be like, hey, looking good. But the stuff it's like 100% objectification. And that is why I'm like, this is a waste of valuable screen time. That 30 seconds could have been something else. That's what it was. Okay, and then let's see, what else did she go on to say? In the books, DG often brings attention to the fact that Jamie is strikingly handsome and several feet taller than an average male of the time. If he knocked on my door, I would show my appreciation too, albeit not so brazenly. But he would catch my vibe. Oh, Kiss Lena, you're hilarious. The so-called sentiment in Brianna's letter, I care for you, big yuck, is nonsensical and an honesty. The book's DG doesn't convey that Bri has a true passion for Roger. He grows on her to be honest. Roger is in love first, so it eventually balances out. I enjoyed your passionate review and hearing you back in excellent form. Okay, let's see if I can find the next one. It is highly significant that when Brianna goes through the stones, she is wearing the bracelet that Roger gave her, which I did catch, and the same dress as she did at the calling of the clans the last time she saw him. I didn't remember her wearing that dress at the Scottish festival. So I need to go back and look. I haven't had a chance to do that yet. Which means I simply could have missed it. Okay, and it was Linda Brumfield, thank you, who said about 12 years since Jamie and Murtagh saw each other. Like I said, my brains must have spilled out of my head when I said 20 years. I don't know. I'm not perfect. I try. And I did get an email from, I believe it's Leneo. I hear your podcast and I am a reader. I don't want to spoil my fantasy with the series as I hear so much negative about it from friends, but I really enjoy the books. The next one I'm going to read is An Echo in the Bone. And she said, so she's listening to the podcast about the show, but she reads the books only. Interesting. So she's finding out what's going on in the show from listening to the podcast without watching it. I just heard podcast 155 and you say that your husband has Swedish descendants. I hope I spelled it the right way. Yes, his ancestors are Swedish and he looks like a Viking. I did Scandinavian studies at university for years and I have to tell you the Vikings came from Norway and Iceland, not from Sweden. Awesome. Thank you for telling me that. But he is half Swedish. Thank you. Oh. Anyway, that's a lot of it. And there's some more that I'll fill in next week. I got quite a few in the last couple of weeks. So, how are you feeling about this season and this episode and what is to come? I know I'm trying to think. The preview for the next one is edited to make it look like Brianna got a ticket onto a ship with Captain Stephen Bonnet. But Stephen Bonnet was the captain of the Gloriana. So unless they change that, she was on what, the Alonzo? You think after reading the book so often, I'd remember the name of the ship. But I think that Stephen Bonnet was not the captain, and it was edited to make it look like she was on his ship, heading toward the colonies. We didn't see any Brianna this week. We didn't see young Ian. He was supposed to be off hunting with the Cherokee. And I didn't see Roger. So we have no clue what the rest of them are up to. And I figure that next week it's going to be all about Brianna and Roger. That is my guess. And gosh, I can't believe we're going to be on episode 7 already. That seems like madness to me. We're just marching through. And next week's episode is called Down the Rabbit Hole. And the synopsis, Brianna follows in her mother's footsteps and travels through the stones back in time to 18th century Scotland, where she struggles to make her way to the colonies and find her parents. So, it's going to be all about Brianna and what's going on. It's going to be fabulous, I have a feeling. Alrighty. So, where else can you find a Dram of Outlander? The Facebook group and the Facebook page. Please go and join the group. You have to answer a few questions. It is an awesome place to be. Super smart people, some spirited people, and people that rarely need to be moderated. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I think it's one of the best fan Outlander communities that there is because of the amazing personalities that will just mesh together and communicate and discuss things without getting their feelings hurt all the time. So I appreciate that immensely because I am not a micromanager. And you can also find a Dram of Outlander on Instagram and Twitter, where it's a Dram of Outlander without the A in the front. Didn't have room. And the dramofoutlander.com website, of course. And if you're trying to find a different streaming service to listen, you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and among other streaming services that download from the main services. And you can support the podcast by sharing it with other people, telling them it's great or whatever. Having people, listen and become tuned into it by interacting with other people in the Dram of Outlander community. And finally, financially, you can support the podcast going through patreon.com/dramofoutlander and offering as little as $1 a month. And I appreciate you so much. And it's an expense every year to maintain the website and the podcast and the equipment and do the things that need to be done with it. So that's it. If you feel led to give financial support, please do so. And finally, you can support the podcast by sending me your questions and comments and thoughts and calling me out when I say things wrong and giving me your ideas and your points of view, because we are all going to have different points of view on this material based on our own personal experiences in life and how we view the characters and the content and the context. To me, I don't look at Jamie and be like, hot Jamie. I don't. I've always looked at Jamie as Claire's. He's not Leary's. He's not Mary McNabb's, even though she did him a solid that one night. He's definitely not Geneva Dunsany's. He's always been Claire's alone. And so I kind of look at them like this is like the couple that's my buddies. And I do my own thing. I'm just their friend that comes in and out. That's how I look at it. So I want Lord John Grey to be my gay boyfriend who's amazing. I want that. I think Roger Mack's a little more my speed. Frank could have been more my speed too. No, he's not boring for all of these you Frank haters. I think Frank was very complicated and complex. He and Claire were just not a suitable fit anymore. And there was a lot to him that we did not get to see and know. But so we're all going to develop our own sense of kind of needs from what we're going to see on the screen or read in the books. And we develop that sense and our own points of view based on the very same things that we all see. If you read the books, the material's the same. It doesn't change reader to reader, but our filter does. And that's the same with the TV show. We did get a lot of feedback on the page this week that really was like, gosh, look at the subtlety at which Sam can do things, the expressions that he can make. And, he's underrated. I think he's really underrated. And part of it, I think, is that even though he's been doing the same things in developing Jamie these 4 seasons, I think at this point in the series, there's no way but to really deeply develop Jamie, because he's a core focus of the material that they're adapting. Even though we're bringing in new characters, he's really the core. And so you have to have a very solid character and multi-layers of development. And I think we're finally getting to see that. He's getting screen time, like in a way that has been hit or miss, I think, in the past. Just in some, like season 2, we saw him a lot, but he was kind of a shell. And I get it. But that's really what it felt like to me as a viewer. And then season 3, they were all discombobulated. And he was wholly discombobulated, with that extra wife and stuff. But now that they have some grounding and they're in a place that's theirs, we are going to see him blossom and flourish as a character and really get to see everything that Sam has to offer as an actor. And I think it's wonderful. I mean, with Katrina Balfe getting another Golden Globe nom, I totally get that too. Like, I could watch the Faith episode. I know it's not what she was nominated for, this Golden Globe, but I could watch that Faith episode all the time. That episode, that's my favorite episode of that season, and probably one of the only episodes that I like to rewatch. She's amazing in that, and it's just, cuts my heart out. And she was amazing last season. So, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Sam brings. He's not just eye candy. And I think that could be part of people underrating him against, say, Katrina. And because there's a lot of onus put on his physicality and his hotness, and maybe that's why I thought it was the silversmith's wife scene was a waste of screen time, because it didn't do anything for Jamie's character except remind us that here's his holy sexiness, the king of sexy men, or whatever it is. So, I don't know. You can weigh in on that. I might just be overthinking it like I want to do. All right. So this season, we're almost halfway through, and we're getting to the goodies, the serious goodies here. And I look forward to what is developing, and I'm worried about the regulators and how that's going to turn out. And I'm worried about Roger. We'll see. So again, 719-425-9444 is a voicemail. contact@adreamofoutlander.com is the email. And I appreciate you. And I hope that you guys will follow me into the Fiery Cross read along. I'm going to try to do it a little bit differently. But it's going to be about 45 episodes, so it should butt right up against season 5, which is going to probably not be until early 2020 that comes out, just because of all the production time. And till then, we're going to get through the rest of this season, hopefully in excellent spirits as we go, and enjoy it. And until next time, Slán Java.